let's just get started on the questions for this awesome movie that you did. I loved it. It was so good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Reagan has actually become knocked the right stuff, which before was my favorite movie that I've ever done because I judged my movies by the experience that I had making them. And Reagan is, after 40 years, toppled the right stuff off the top spot for me.
So what's the top spot?
It was, but previously was the right stuff.
Okay, okay. I
Yeah,
haven't seen that
that I
one.
made back in 1982. So that's 40 years ago. Over.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I remember you in The Parent Trap.
Yeah.
Because I was a little kid whenever it came
Yeah. I was your babysitter.
out.
Parents, they put that movie on and played it like 40 times while they were doing something else in the other room.
Well, it was a great movie.
It's a great movie.
So I just want to ask you, how did your Christian faith, do you think, impacted your performance in this role?
Very much so, I think, because Reagan, faith, it, it spoke to him and was part of his bedrock as a person. And so it's very important, and so it's also, part of my bedrock, and I've had my own journey about it, and we're all human beings, and that was a great way into getting to know Ronald Reagan, the person. For me, was through his faith and his faith journey in life.
Why did you decide to take on the role?
Well, at first I said I had to think about it. I didn't say no, but I said I had to think about it because when it was offered, to tell you, it scared me. It really did. It like no other role that I've ever been offered. Because Reagan was my favorite president. I voted for him and a hero of mine. But that's not enough of of, of something for me to want to do the role. Reagan, along with like Muhammad Ali, everybody knows who he is, how he talked, his mannerisms, and so that part frightened me a lot. It took me a while. I was invited to the Western White House, the ranch, the Reagan Ranch, which is not open to the public. And they, consortium of friends bought that place and just preserved it as it was, is the way it is. And I went up there, and coming through the gates after going up 5 miles of the worst road in California, you come through the gates and I could feel him there. And I realized that Reagan was a humble man. He was not a rich man, but there was a humbleness, humility in him that, very much reflected his faith, I think. And the house itself, this is the Western White House we're talking about, was 1,100 square feet, barely a two-bedroom house. They had a king size bed, yes, but it was two single beds that were zip tied together. His bookshelf was filled with, you see that coming through the door. The first thing you see is this huge bookshelf that is filled with every book that Reagan ever had, going back to 9 years old. And it's their clothes are in the closet, in fact, left exactly as they were. You expect them to come back at any time. There's three remote controllers, back in the old days of the 90s, that you had to use 3 controllers to get the TV to work, and one of them goes kaprong, kaprong when you change it, and a little note from Nancy on how to use it. And it's so I felt his humanness there, and that's what made me say yes. And that fear that I felt was really a message that I needed to do something like that. That's part of like the way God works in our life. You got to be careful what you ask God for, because he just might give it to you. And that could, but not in a way that you thought. And so that fear going up my spine was actually a message, I think, to get out of my comfort zone.
So
And
do you
so I
think
said yes.
why were you scared? Was it because of the political atmosphere in the country right now?
The political atmosphere, the uh Reagan being one, so known and stuff, I felt like going to be so judged and for this, and also feeling not worthy, and uh that's all that stuff, that you got to overcome, and you got to get out of your comfort zone. That's the way God works, I think. you
Do
know
you,
like
do you-
that's why you got to be careful about what you ask for, because you may not want to go on that ride.
well, do
It's gonna
you
be a
think
scary
that
ride a little
what?
bit. It's gonna be a scary ride a little bit, but that's where it's things like that bring you to the overcoming yourself, and the joy in life, your purpose.
President Reagan had a really close relationship with St. John Paul II. So did that ever like inspire you in any way, or what were your thoughts?
Right from the get-go, our first scene that we shot was in the Oval Office, and it was watching on television at Pope John Paul was shot, the assassination attempt that he lived through, forgave his assassin, actually went to visit him in jail. I mean, that's really quite something. And then, Reagan himself, was attempted to be attempted assassination right there in his first couple of months in office, and it completely changed the trajectory of his presidency. And the two of them were Cold Warriors. It had the Pope being Polish, and Reagan and Lech Walesa and Margaret Thatcher. They won the Cold War,
Mhm.
and Reagan was a huge part of that. I don't think it could have happened without those links. And so I think you got to say that God was at work here and bringing all this about, because before then it seemed impossible. I remember I did a movie in Germany back in Dragonheart. I think it was 1984. And at that time, Reagan was in office. He didn't even talk to the Soviets until I think 86. But I asked Germans there, and I went to East Germany, which looked like World War II had ended yesterday. There was rubble that they just left to remind them. And uh, even the Western Germans, nobody believed that the Berlin Wall would ever come down. And then 4 years later, because of Reagan, it did. Incredible.
Pretty miraculous.
So the Pope and he were very close. I don't know how much communication they actually had together, but they were definitely in sync. And it was an incredible time to be alive in this world. And it's, it was God in action. It truly was.
How do you think that this film, like I noticed a lot of parallels to what was going on then to what's even happening now. And
Yeah.
I think it's gotten a lot worse, clearly, but there's a lot of parallels. So how do you think that I think this film is coming out at the perfect time. And
I do too.
how do you
Although I never wanted it to come out during an election year. And, 4 years ago, when we were shooting this film, it was, gosh, it was a different world in a sense. It was and that time between there, between when we were shooting the film and now really reminds me of those 4 years before Reagan became president. There was this feeling of malaise back then, that even Jimmy Carter came on and spoke about, what was going on in Iran with the Iran hostages, and our feelings of not being able to do anything about it, because being afraid of what might happen if we stood up to people, gas prices and oil and the inflation that we had, which was, remember house loans back then. I know because I actually bought a house or started to build a house, and it was 20% was what the interest rates were back then. It was like, believe it or not. And for a time, and Reagan came in, the Iran hostages were released the very minutes after him taking office. In fact, they got the news that the hostages were released. And that was because the Iran, they walked all over Carter. As good a man as he was, and he did great with the Egypt and Israel making peace. I give him such credit for that. He was a good man, but he didn't know how to say no, to stand up, to the Soviets or to Iran. And it was really the strength of Reagan. People thought he was a warmonger. A large section thought he was a warmonger, that he was going to get us in a nuclear war or whatever. But it was that toughness to stand up and say no that really propelled events to the point to defeat the Soviet Union in this Cold War that was very real, and prevented a nuclear war, actually, because of that strength.
Well, how do you think that, because
And that's what's going on today. I do agree with you. It's like what is going on today is has a large part to do with because we don't really listen to that voice deep down in there that gives us strength. It's like the president reflects the American people, and we need to come together and unite. And that's what happened back then. We came together and united, and that's what gave Reagan the strength to do that.
do you think that this film could reignite the virtue of patriotism in this country?
Well, yeah, I don't want to build it up too much, the movie or whatever, because it's entertainment. People should, going to the movie. It's I hope that they're entertained, in the story of this person's life. But I do think that those born before 1985 will have a chance to kind of see and feel. We go to the movies to feel things more than see things, but you'd be able to like feel what this country was like back then, and what it was, and how great it really was. And those born after 1985 could have the possibility to really see and feel what this country can be.
That's wonderful. I really hope that it does, because
America is the hope of the world. It still is. We just need to get our act together.
I think you're absolutely right.
Tickets are on sale right now at Reagan.movie. They have been group sales, but as of July 4th, everybody individuals will be able to reserve a ticket. It comes out August 30th at a theater near you.